Hello and welcome to episode 5 of 50 Women Over 50, a podcast for women whose personal confidence is born of experience. I'm your host, Sherrilynne Starkie. My goal with this podcast is to interview 50 intriguing women who are over 50 years of age to learn how they see this world and what they've learned along the way. Today, I am welcoming Kathy Buckworth to the show. She's an award-winning parenting author, a media personality, mom of 4, and a grandma of 2. You'll know her as the host of Go to Grandma on Zoomer Radio, where she talks with guest experts and shares information about subjects that all grandparents want to hear about. I was absolutely thrilled when she volunteered to come on my show because I've long been an admirer of her work. And in this interview, Kathy confesses that turning 50 kicked her butt a little at first, but she's come to realize that age is nothing but a number on the scoreboard. She loves life in her 50s, and she feels the future is bright. Welcome, Kathy Buckworth, to the show. I'm so delighted that you are able to join me today.
And I am so happy to be here. Thank you.
You don't know this, but I'm a bit of a fangirl for you because when I became a grandmother before you did, and I had this idea, I was 50 the year I became a grandmother. I had this idea that I wanted to be the first grandma blogger. There was tons of mom blogs out there. This is like a real thing. This could be a proper business, being a grandma blogger. But of course, I was working at a PR agency at the time, and I just was too busy to get my act together around it. And then, lo and behold, 2 or 3 years later, you come out with your podcast, Go to Grandma. And I was like, well, at least somebody did it. You are definitely a pioneer, I think, in terms of this whole kind of social media engagement with your peer group. And tell me a little bit about your podcast and how did it come to fruition and what's happened?
Sure.
Launched it.
Sure. I became a grandma, I guess, almost 3 years ago. My oldest grandson, I have 2 of them. My oldest one is almost 3. So I was 56, actually became a grandparent. I've always written about parenting and my 4 kids and everything, and they were grown. And when I became a grandparent, I thought there's not a lot of not resources, but not a lot of community. How's that? Because certainly you can pick up a book about grandparenting anywhere, but I thought there's not a lot of community around it. And when I started thinking about it, I thought, why are we still using grandparent as sort of a slam? Like someone will say, okay, grandma, like it's this bad thing. I thought we need to change the narrative on grandparenting and not the same type of grandparenting that perhaps that we grew up with. I, in fact, only met my grandparents a handful of times because they live in England. I didn't have a close relationship at all. I started writing about it a bit, about being a grandparent. And then I was a regular on Zoomer Radio in the morning show, just talking about whatever I was talking about, parenting and volunteer work, etc. And I said to one of the morning anchors, and I said, if I want to pitch a show, like, what do I do? She's like, oh, here's the guy, send it in. And she said, but he's terrible at getting back to people. Did you pitch it and see what happened? I pitched it, and I'm not kidding. 15 minutes later, I got an email back from him saying, I'm in. They were obviously looking for that kind of a show. I called it the Go-To Grandma or Go-To Grandma. And I had a couple of people say, why you have grandma in the title? And I'm like, well, first of all, I've been doing Go-To Grandma segments on television for a while. I would say I'm your Go-To Grandma. And I said, I want to bring back that word. It's not a bad word. We want to embrace that word and say, yeah, we're grandparents. And the show is targeted that way. It's targeted for what today's grandparents are dealing with. And it's not all about the grandkid, although a lot of it is, and relationships and that sort of thing. It's about nutrition and tech and travel and social media and books and art and everything that we're just sort of going through, maybe in a unique position in our probably 55 plus and 50 plus years, or just from a grandparent's perspective. And I've had a great reception to it, really enjoying it. And I've got this fantastic title sponsor who's Royal Bank, whom I used to work for 30 years ago. Anyways, I've kept a relationship up there, and they've been fantastic in providing financial advice as well to the same audience. Retirement, obviously a big one, or even buying a second property or downsizing, all of that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's really fun as well. Yeah, it's a great mix, I hope, if I call it fun and facts. It's like a magazine style format show. Try to do one fun sort of subject and one more serious. It's not a show about aging at all, although we do address things that happen uniquely after we pass the age of 50. And it's a half-hour sort of quick thing that airs on Zoomer Radio, and then it's up on the podcast.
And it's a great brand because everyone knows if you really want something, go to grandma.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I know it goes both ways. I go to grandma or the go-to grandma. And I'm fine either way. I just wanted people to know what this show is about. And it's funny because I have some guests on this show obviously who aren't grandparents. I love it when they are grandparents as well, but obviously I just have experts in their field, and they go out of their way sometimes when they're promoting their interviews to say, I'm not a grandparent. I'm like, it's not a bad thing. Don't worry. No one thinks you're a grandparent at 35. We're good.
Yeah, I know. Well, becoming a grandparent, it really was a big, I mean, it was as big as becoming a parent or getting married or anything in terms of life changes. My whole perspective on life changed.
Yeah, it's a milestone for sure, right? It's definitely a milestone. It's a life marker, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Your whole paradigm changes. And then, of course, I don't know about you, but like I live up to every single stereotype that it's like the kid, wrong. You want to eat chocolate right before bed. Go ahead. You want to play with the fine china. Okay, I'll get it out for you.
Yeah. We're a bit of suckers, my husband and I, for the grandkids for sure. I think that the thing is, I'm not allowed to get away with anything because my daughter, Victoria, or Tori Halpin, who's the mom of my grandson, is actually in the same business, so to speak. She's a child educator, a teacher, and she actually talks a lot about gentle parenting and parenting techniques that more the millennial moms are using now, if I can use that term. She's 126,000 Instagram followers or something. So I have to be careful. Because she'll report what I do. And what I mean by that is I'm very conscious of her parenting techniques, actually, and they're vegan, and I'm not. So I actually don't slip them chocolate chip cookies on a regular basis, although I'd like to. So I follow along with all of her strategies. And actually, I get people saying, well, isn't that annoying? They don't watch TV till they're 2, or you can't say you're doing a good job when you're eating their dinner and stuff like that. Actually, it doesn't bother me at all because it's kind of nice not being the one in charge. You know what I mean? I've done my parenting.
That is right. Hit the nail on the head right there. That's not our jobs, right? Our job is to support our children in their role as parents and say, you're doing a good job. And then just to add some support. And certainly during pandemic times, a lot of grandparents, like I took on a lot of responsibility in terms of looking after my aging mother and trying to help my daughter who was working. And plus now she's a teacher, and there was a lot of stuff going on. If there's one thing I want to hang on to as a silver lining about the pandemic, was that every morning at 10 a.m. I did a story time with my grandchildren online, and would read a book with them, give their mom about 20 minutes or 30 minutes to herself in the morning. And that's really silver linings. Exactly. No, that's cool though. And it wasn't trying for grandparents to stay in touch during lockdown when we weren't allowed to expand our family bubbles, right? Thank goodness we're moving past that a little bit. Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Tell
me about your 50th birthday party. What did you do?
Right. Okay. I'm 59. I'll have to think back. My 50th landed at the same time as my last book came out, actually, which was I'm Still the Boss of You. Can't believe it's 9 years ago, but it was. And it came out at the same time because my birthday is in April and Mother's Day is in May. And that's when they tend to release mothering type books. I was actually doing a bit of promo for it, and I got stuck at the Ottawa airport. There you go. I spent my 50th birthday having dinner by myself at a crappy little restaurant at the Ottawa airport. So exciting. And then when I came home, I had a book launch, which took place. It was wonderful and everything. And I said, I can't do a 50th. I didn't really do a 50th birthday party, but I'll tell you what, when I turned 55, I had a really fun big dinner party. I saved it up a bit. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I did have a big 50th birthday party, but it was a surprise party. So I didn't know that it was happening. But I'm definitely getting the word out there that I do not want a big surprise party for my 60th birthday. I've already done.
Yeah, I'm not so big on the surprise parties. I like the idea of celebrating, and I think it doesn't celebrate. You're open, and so I always talk about my age doesn't bother me. Although I will say that 50 kind of kicked my butt a bit. Turning 50, it did. Yeah, turning 40, who cares? But turning 50, I thought, geez, this really is the back nine at this point, right? But now I love my 50s. They've been amazing. But I would say it took me a year to get over the fact that I was in my 50s. Honestly.
Right.
Yeah.
What happened that made you decide that this was not going to be so bad? What was an event?
I guess just, I don't know if there was an event or not. There was just this feeling of, you know what, I still feel the same. Like I'm still as active as I ever was. I still have a great career, great life, everything. Nothing's really changed except the number on the scoreboard, right? It gradually came to me, I guess, in that way. And I don't know, I guess I just found that I knew so many people in their 50s that were still doing amazing things too, and 60s. Like I have to say, the idea of turning 60 doesn't actually bother me. And leading up to 50, it bugged me. I think I'm past it. I read a quote. I wish I could remember who said it, but that 50 is the youth of old age and the old age of youth. And I think that's really true. It's like you're standing up here, looking back at some, but looking forward to others. And it's maybe you know this too. It's so true that like little things don't bother you as much. The older that you get, you've got a much better capacity to see the big picture. And I've always been someone who acted pretty quickly on things. And I think I'm slowing down in that regard, which is I'll sit on things now for like a day, which was unheard of me before, even big decisions, right? I think it's just coming to that space of, oh, it's okay. I'm good. And I can take my time and I can make good decisions. I don't have to do everything that people ask me to do.
Yeah. If there's one thing that I would like the listeners of this podcast series to take away is that don't fear your 50s. Because I'm like you, like the lead up to my 50s, it was like a pit of dread in my stomach.
Yes.
And I couldn't quite believe it was happening to me.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, my fifth decade has been my best decade. It really has. I mean, apart from the pandemic, but at least, life could have been a lot worse. There could have been a lot worse things that happened to me personally than that pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. In the 50s, I agree, have been my best. I thought my 40s were a great decade. When I look back, I had 4 kids and I had them when I was 28, 30, 35, and 39. So given that, my 40s kind of passed in a bit of a blur, I'll just say, right? Because I was working full time, I was doing whatever. And I feel like the 40s went by pretty quickly. And then when the 50s came and my kids were not grown by name, because my youngest would have only been 11, but it was sort of a slowing down in a sense. Some of them were out of the house, et cetera. And that became actually a nice part of being in your 50s, right?
Yeah. A lot of change.
Yeah.
But for me, a lot of change. My kids went off to college when I was 40.
Yeah.
I got an early start.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like my 40s were career building years for me because I didn't have so much childcare stuff.
Right.
And stuff. But my career in my 50s has been the best it's ever been. So
yeah, and mine has changed. And I think when you're like, we are entrepreneurial and making our own way. I mean, I was a corporate banker, marketer for 18 years before I wrote my first book. Those years were pretty heavy too, and having the 4 kids, et cetera. Being on the freelance side now has given me more freedom. In fact, I was downtown Toronto yesterday with one of my kids seeing a play, and they really wanted to go to the Eaton Center after. I'm like, oh. And I thought, it's so weird not having to race home. And like usually I was used to being downtown and I had to get home for a kid, or I had to get home to take someone to a sport, or I had to, I'm like, I have nothing to race home for. It's kind of free, but it's kind of weird too.
Mm-hmm. Let me give you a heads up because my grandchildren are a little bit older than yours. There are a lot more sports runs in your future.
Probably you're right. Exactly.
Like there are for sure.
Them before. Yeah, exactly.
So what advice would you give to your 30-year-old self?
I thought about this question when I saw it on your list, and I thought, I'm not sure, because I think like you and I have just been talking about our 50s not being as sort of bad as we had anticipated, and in fact being pretty good. I don't know if I would have believed that from someone in their 40s, and I certainly wouldn't have believed it from someone in their 30s. I'm not sure that 30-year-olds would believe whatever advice we would give them, is what I'm trying to say. And I guess the only advice I would say is, I think people worry that they get stuck in something. I made the decision to stay at home until my kids are in school, or this is my career path. I've been here already for 5 years or 10 years, or whatever it is in your 30s, and I can't leave. Like, you can change things pretty quickly. I guess that would be my advice, is if you're not happy, if you're feeling stuck, just change it. Like, what are you doing to try to change it? Whether it's going back to school, whether it's addressing maybe fitness or health things that you have going on, so what are you doing to address it? And you can start that at any time. As you can start when you're 80, for goodness sake, but you can certainly start making changes when you're 30. I would say don't try not to get into a position, if you can, where you feel super stuck, I think, in that decade, because you're really pretty young still, which no one in their 30s would think that they are.
Yes, that's true.
You are, right? Like in 25 years, you might make a whole career change in 25 years. Think about it, right? Not to feel that whatever you're doing now is how you see the rest of your sort of career or your life or whatever playing out.
Mm-hmm. And I think for the people in that cohort right now, like a lot of them have made really substantial investments in their educations, much more so than our generation did. I mean, yes, we went to college and university and stuff.
Yeah.
But when I was working in agencies here in Ottawa, I mean, people were coming to me with multiple degrees, with postgraduate degrees for an entry-level agency job. And when you're carrying, you've invested that much in your education, not only the financial investment, but the time and emotional in it. I can understand why you would think at age 30, oh no, I don't like this, but I've put so much into it so far. I'm stuck here now. But you're totally,
exactly.
You're not stuck here. You're
not stuck here. And in fact, my oldest daughter, the one I was just talking about, Tori, she trained and went through to be a teacher, went to teachers college, taught for a year at a very nice private school, had great parents and kids and teachers, didn't like it after a year. She said, and she was afraid to tell us. She said, Mom, I don't like it. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, change it then. You're 20, not whatever she was, 20. No, she was younger, probably like 25. I said, change it. And what do you want to do? And she worked at PR companies in the March breaks, fall breaks, summer, whatever. And she went and worked for a PR company. She went and worked for E1 and she worked for different companies, did PR for many years. And then sort of when she had her two kids said, I don't do PR anymore. I'm going to go lean back on my teaching degree and get that going again and not teach, but sort of do this, the sort of online parenting thing that she's doing. But yeah, nothing's forever, but things in your past come to help you, right? Sometimes my years in corporate banking and marketing certainly helped me to run the business, which is now my radio show. I mean, I'm responsible for all of it as you are for your podcast. Those management skills weren't in vain either,
Very true. My first career was in retail. I'm talking ancient history.
Yeah.
Back in the dark ages, I spent the first 5 years of working life in retail, but the lessons I learned working at Eaton's selling ladies sportswear have carried me through my whole career. I learned a lot about client services, interpersonal communication, all that kind of stuff. You're so right about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Those skills will always help you. So don't think of it as wasted time if you decide to switch careers, for sure. Yeah.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I am so enjoying doing this radio show and podcast. As I mentioned before, I am wholly responsible for it. I had to get the sponsor, Royal Bank. I book the guests. I research the guests. I book the guests. I write the scripts. I do the ads. I do all the social media, all the promotion for it. And I love it. I'm in season 2. I've done 64 or 65 episodes at this point. Yeah. Which I wasn't sure. Then we're zooming along here and I really like it. I don't know if I see myself doing it another 10 years because I like changing things up as well. Who knows? And besides the radio show, I'm doing still television and brand work and things like that, like I've always done. Mm-hmm. But you know what? I love having new experiences. I'm going back to take some more courses. I'm a big believer and I've taken a lot of script writing courses. I've written a couple of scripts now. I can't sell them, but I wrote them. I've written a couple of novels too. Again, can't sell them yet, but I'm working on it. I'm going back to take some more classes in comedy writing and television writing and stuff like that. See where that takes me. Who knows, right? That's the nice thing about in 10 years. I would be very surprised if I am retired in 10 years. I have 0 retirement plans right now. I'll tell you that, but I'm only 59. So we'll see.
Yeah. And you have your health. I feel the same way with retirement. I cannot visualize myself being retired, not having something going on. And yet of people that I do know that have retired, they say, I've never been busier in my whole life once they get into retirement.
Yeah. I know people too younger than me, same as me, that are retiring. And I would say half of them are happy that they're retired. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. I know a lot of people that retired and went back. Maybe do something different, but
exactly.
Yeah. And we're living longer, right? Retirement is like, we're talking 30, 40 years for most of us. If it's a optimistic.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's a long time. And it's not only a long time now, if you find another passion in life, that's awesome. Like whether it's a different type of line of work or just a hobby or something that really engulfs your volunteer work, whatever it is, that's fantastic. But if you're just doing crossword puzzles, not to trash crossword puzzles because I love them, but not for the next 40 years, right? Yeah, you gotta have a bit of a plan for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, talking about the future, what are you most hopeful about for the future?
Well, I think it continued like my relationship with my grandkids. Obviously, I've got 2 right now. I'm not sure if there's any more on the horizon. I hope so. I hope to be able to be the type of grandparent that can be very present. As I mentioned, I didn't have that relationship with my grandparents, and I think it's very valuable. And in order to do that, I hope that I have very good health. I'm very lucky. I do work out a lot. I try to watch what I eat and drink. I hope that I'm able to because I think people underestimate, and you would know this, how physical it can be with your grandkids too, right?
Yeah.
If they come barreling at you with a great big hug, you better be good. You better be able to anchor that. And just picking them up and carrying them around and getting on the floor and running around. Yeah, like I want to start a training course for grandparents, an obstacle course for grandparents.
Good idea.
Right? Yeah. Squatting on the ground playing trays. Well, right. But you got to do that stuff. Yeah. I'm hopeful that I can carry on doing that because I feel like I'm pretty active with the grandkids right now. We do a lot of stuff outside.
And switching over to the quick round here, what are you reading, watching, binging? What content are you consuming?
All stuff. Okay. I read like a big nerd. I have 2 library cards in Mississauga and then in Meaford where my college is. And I have a Kobo that's always loaded. I read probably 3 to 4 books a week.
Oh, yeah.
Average reader, and it mostly top 10. I'll like top 10 fiction. Like I just finished Stephen King's latest. I'm reading Richard, what's his name? The Thursday Murder Club, Richard Ullman right now. I love Linwood Barclay. I read a lot of thriller type stuff. I do read some nonfiction. I have to read a lot for my show because I have a lot of authors on the show, which I enjoy. In terms of watching, I warn my husband about this all the time. I probably know how to get away with murdering him at this point because I watch so many British, like gritty British crime dramas, like Line of Duty and stuff like that. I love British television. My parents are British and I guess they grew up a little bit with that. But yeah, that's mostly what I binge on is the suspenseful, gritty crime stuff, I have to say. Yeah.
I agree with you about that. I lived in Britain for 20 years. I'm also very biased to it. And BritBox, right? What a find.
Right. BritBox and Acorn. Do you watch Acorn TV too?
No, I don't know.
Acorn is all British. Yeah. And a lot of overlap with BritBox, but some other stuff there. Anyway, yeah. I love
check
that
it out.
kind of stuff.
I'll put a link to it in the show notes. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you doing any extracurricular stuff like volunteering or fundraising?
I did a lot of volunteering, more so when actually I did a lot of volunteering when I first sort of quit full time and started working from home writing and stuff because I found I had the time for it. I did a lot with the Toronto Symphony. And now my volunteering is left mostly to, I do run, if this counts. I do a lot of the 5K, 10K runs and stuff for charity to try to raise money out, especially the Run for the Cure. I think we've done it for 20 years or something crazy. And I also really actively seek out volunteer and charitable organizations to feature on my radio show. I just did an interview that's going to air this week or next week with Feed Ontario, which supports Ontario food banks. I've done a lot with Pride at Work Canada. I'm doing another interview with R.H. Thompson, who used to be on And with an E, who runs an organization called The World Remembers, where it's a not-for-profit. He's trying to capture all the names of everyone who gave their lives in World War I. And this year we're focusing on women. I really try to make sure that I represent sort of all of those organizations on the show and give them the airtime that they need and that they can't afford to buy anywhere. And their stories are always so interesting. And I really hope that reaches a wider audience that way.
Wow. You're busy.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah. I need to find another hands-on sort of thing to do on the charity side as well, because I did enjoy the time in the Toronto Symphony where I did a lot there. I really would like to do something on the art side, I think.
And I like the 5K thing too. I was doing some of that until the pandemic hit. And I can't run unless there's a race, right? Like I won't do it.
Actually,
the deadline, right?
Exactly. Indeed, sites have been deadly. Yeah, we just did one for Run for the Cure, just a couple of weeks ago. And before that, we did one at Meaford, where our cottage is for supporting the hospital. It is nice to have a sort of a mission or a purpose to do that. I agree. And I know, what does running have to do with those? Well, it raises money. That's what it has to do with it, right? And it gives us a deadline and helps our fitness. It's a win-win, right?
Yes. And it's also the community.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And is there an app that you couldn't live without?
Waze, because I have zero sense of direction.
Okay.
Literally zero. Google Maps and Waze. And I use Waze all the time, especially I'm in downtown Toronto a lot, and I know how to get home from downtown Toronto. It's only 25 minutes, but it changes so much. And yesterday I left downtown, left the center at 5:20. And normally 20-minute drive took me 90 minutes. And that was with Waze. There was a huge accident. I can't find my way anywhere without Waze. I would say any other app on my phone, I could probably work around that, but I need to know where I'm going.
Yeah, no, it's important too. And it's such a way of life now. Like I couldn't contemplate getting in the car and not putting on Google Maps or something even if I'm going like to my mom's where I could drive there blindfolded, but it could navigate you around the traffic if there's any holdups or anything like this.
And I think maybe you're like me, because we started this on time today. I hate being late, right? The map will tell me if I'm going to be late. Like I'll look it up before I go, right? To make sure I can get there on time. For me, it's that sort of time management sort of thing. And then of course the social media apps, if you consider those apps that you couldn't live without, right? So I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on Snapchat, but I am. My favorite is probably still Twitter, honestly. And then Instagram and Facebook, mostly for personal stuff. Those apps, I guess I use on a daily basis also.
I got on TikTok this year because my clients.
Did you?
Yeah, I do a lot of work in social media. My clients were asking me about it and I thought, well, I got to figure this thing out then. And so that's how I've always done social media is I do it for myself and I learn, and then I can apply it to clients. I wouldn't say that I'm usually successful, but I'm having a lot of fun. It's a fun app.
I do have it. So I do watch them. How's that? My kids are on it, whatever. I'm a lurker, 100% a lurker. Yeah. And apparently I was reading, there's a huge senior market on TikTok, right? It's a big thing. In fact, I just had Sharon and Bram from Sharon and Bram. I recorded them yesterday. They have 12 million views on TikTok. Journals and Bram. Like seriously, I'm like, okay, guys, I got to get on here. But yeah, very fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. And it's just, well, maybe it's the algorithm, but I don't see a lot of the negativity that you see on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't see that anywhere on TikTok. It's just a fun, entertaining experience, which I like.
Yeah. Cool.
But do you have a life hack that you'd like to share with our audience for
I guess, you know what? And I don't know if this is a life hack or not, but it certainly works for me. I do work out every day and it's just people, how do you do it? I said, it's actually just part of my routine, but you have to do things. How many times do they say you have to do it? 10 times or something before it's a routine. I would encourage that a great deal. And what I do is part of my thing, and it may annoy the heck out of people, but too bad. Every day on Instagram, when I finish my workout, I post a picture of it in my stories. Every time and I get people saying that it's so inspiring or good for you. And other people say, oh, really, seriously, honestly, you're really bugging me. Like if you're making me feel guilty or you're just bragging or whatever, it's part of my own motivation. Yeah. That if there are things that motivate you, you don't have to listen to people to say, if there's things that you're really struggling to get done, like do something that makes you feel good about having done it, because no one's going to pat you on the back except you, right? Do something that gives yourself a pat on the back, whether for me, it's just posting it every day, or for someone else, maybe it's, I don't know, rewarding themselves with new clothes or, I don't know, going for a walk or doing whatever it is, indulging themselves in reading a book, whatever it is. Like find your own reward mechanisms because no one else is going to give them to you.
Yeah. And when you post it, you get that, as you push post, it's that little sense of achievement.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been working out every day for 4 years, whatever. And before it was pretty much almost every day. It's like, I can't miss a day now because now I'm anal about it. Right. But it is totally motivating for me. And some days are really crappy workouts for 20 minutes and some are great ones for an hour, but it's what keeps me doing it. Find out what keeps you doing something that's good for you.
I find when it comes to the gym and running and stuff, the more you do it, the more you want to do it. The less you do it, the less you want to do it.
That's true of kind of life in general.
Yeah. We kind of got to lean into it and know that once you get some momentum going, you'll be all right.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm going down to an event tonight and I was kind of like, oh, do I want to go or not? Because it's downtown Toronto. I got to be down there at 5:30. It's all traffic. And then I thought, because I haven't been going out like everyone for the last 2.5 years, I feel less like going out. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
So, but the more you do it, you're like, oh, I should do this more often, right? I am going out. I'm going to do it. Actually, doing the podcast with you today made me like put on nice clothes and stuff, and I've got them on already. Why not?
Yeah, definitely. You look great.
I think they're nice. But you know what I mean? But the more you back out of things, like I know a lot of us are booking things and then backing out at the last minute saying, well, I just wanted to be asked, but I didn't really want to go. Just go out. Just force yourself like once in a while, because the less you do, the less you do. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you'd like to share?
I don't think so. I think this is great. I think what you're doing is great. I admire it. The 50 over 50. I think it's a wonderful idea. And I totally agree with you. This is a time for us. And Ann Douglas, we both know, and written this great book called Navigating the Messy Middle. One of the things she mentions in her book about this age is how important it becomes to hang on to our and to really recognize which ones are important to us. And I think that's what a lot of us missed in the last couple of years. A lot of us who were past the really hands-on childbearing years really had come to rely a lot on our community of women or support network of friends. Mm-hmm. And we lost that, right? A little bit. I think getting that back again is going to be super important. And forums like you're doing here, and hopefully my show as well. And there's some other great ones out there. Hopefully that will do that to bring us together online. And then hopefully in real life, right? We can get those friendships back and running again.
Yeah.
I think that's it. The time is right for this, Sherrilynne. I think you're exactly right when you said that. I wish you all the best with this. I know you're going to get some, and I got some great names for you if you need them. So,
Okay, excellent. I do.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online?
You can find me just at kathybuckworth.com, and it's Kathy with a K. That's my name on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as well. And you can find links to the show there. It's just go to Grandma. You can find iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and the Zoomer network, as well as it does air Saturday mornings at 7:30 on Zoomer. And if you're not in the Toronto area, it is online at that time as well at zoomerradio.ca. So you can listen anywhere.
Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed them.
Well, with episode 5 complete, we're 1/10 of the way through this interview series already. This has been 50 Women Over 50, a podcast for women whose personal confidence is born of experience. Thank you to award-winning author and media personality Kathy Buckworth for joining me today and for sharing with us some of her personal journey through her own 5th decade, and for giving us some great practical tips and life hacks for grandparents. I put links to Kathy's show and socials in the show notes so you can find her easily online, and I've also included links to many of the other items we discussed in the show. I've got lots more interviews lined up with some tremendous over 50 women, so don't miss an episode. Subscribe to this podcast now. And if you have a second, please drop me a rating or a review on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps other people find this show. And let's connect and create a whole community of wise women over 50 by sharing a link to the show with your friends and connections. See you next time on 50 Women Over 50. I'm your host, Sherrilynne Starkie.